found some fantastic renders by Star Destroyer of scorg.tools website, and I just wanted to share them with you and talk about some of them. And once again, these are fantastic. Be sure to check out his site. It'll be in the pinned comment below. So what we're dealing with here is a comparison, probably one of the best comparisons we have of the cat next to the brand new Ironclad series of concept ships. Now, granted, the Ironclads may change, but you can see that from the side, or should I say from the front or from the side, you can see that the cat is significantly smaller in multiple ways. And when we even talk about the Assault, the ship itself is the same size as the Ironclad when we're talking about the overall footprint of the ship. So the Ironclad series, while they may have slightly different sizes or a third large size compared to the others, it does have the same footprint. So you can fit a lot more in there. So even though the cat is a modular ship, and you can see where those modularity sections are of 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly in the front have something else that's modular or it's another change. It's pretty straightforward that there is significant differences between these two ships. Some of the more interesting things, though, are the nuances here, where you can see on the cat, there's a forward turret. You can also see on the regular Ironclad, there's a forward turret. On the Ironclad Assault, there's 4 turrets on the front. And also interesting to note is one of the differences is that the Ironclad enjoys having its tractor beam. It's on a rail system, but you can see it in the front left there of its exposed hangar that opens on top instead of the sides like the cat, whereas the cat has to use that tractor beam on the far side of this picture of the cat, and there is a small control room that kind of guides things in and out. Another thing to note is that the cat has ramps that will drop down from each and every one of those modular sections, which currently have a cargo module, if you're trying to visualize what I'm talking about, that open up, whereas the Ironclad has to rely on a single drop ramp on the front or opening the top. So both of them are very useful in space, but when you're down on the ground, there is a significant difference to be noted there. Now, when we compare the Liberator to the Ironclad, things get a little more interesting, because the footprint of the Liberator and the Ironclad at this moment are relatively the same. So the Ironclad Assault is on the far side of the picture, and closer to us is the Liberator. Now, the Liberator does obviously have significantly better circumstances for most craft, and you can see that there's, because of the way the pads are set up on the Liberator, you can take off and land successfully very quickly without the guidance needed of the ship, and arguably, obviously, less defended fighter. So if those top parts are to open, we're still waiting on the Q&A, which should be this week. They just locked the Q&A question thread this weekend. If we can open up the top front of the Ironclad Assault on the top, it should be a great place to put a single fighter or a bunch of snubs, or as we theory crafted, a bunch of Furies, whatever. And on the traditional Ironclad, the regular one, you would also have a pretty good spot, maybe for 2 fighters, something like that. Get creative. The Lib, you don't have to play Legos or Tetris. You can just park them at will, and then you still have storage underneath, both for cargo, for SCU, and also for additional ground vehicles, or possibly even small ships like Furies and Snubs and such, like you picture. Note that the pads do try to focus on a extra small on the front, like a MPUV cargo or personnel or MPUV 1T, and then on top you would have the 2 fighters parked on top or something like that. On to another interesting comparison that I think a lot of people are excited about is trying to compare the Ironclad to its big brother, I guess you could say, the Kraken series. And the Krakens in general are obviously in the same category as the Liberator, where you have those landing pads that are completely exposed that would allow you to fit a lot more on there. Now, CIG has said in the past that the way the signed distance fields work on the shields, at least as of recently, that the shields would kind of ride up a couple feet above where they stop. So part of the ship would be protected by shields, but some of it would be exposed on an exposed point. Now, on the larger doors of the traditional Ironclad, you will not have to worry about that once you close those doors. But the Kraken obviously can field an entire squadron, even of ships, And being able to field fighters alongside medium class vessels or some such really changes the game, I think, for a lot of people. And also brings in the question of what is the roles of this? The Kraken and the Kraken Privateer have significant differences. I'm going to put the card into my video covering that. But the point is that there's a significant amount of fuel in the Kraken Vanilla that's worth mentioning here. But the Kraken Privateer has some of the same issues that the Ironclad has, in the sense that you have to chew into your own fuel reserves to supply the vessels on board. And to be fair, the Liberator would have to do the same thing. And also, they would not have pad refueling at all. So if you do manage to land a vessel inside the Ironclad, you will have to use either stored fuel that's put in your cargo, or literally rip it out of your tank somehow and then put it into the ship. The Liberator will also have to do that hand refueling as it was described. And then on to the Kraken, which can do fueling, but only the Kraken regular has those extra fuel tanks, so it doesn't have to cut into its own fuel reserves, lessening its range in order to support its squadron of ships. But to me, the more interesting comparison of these extremely different ships is how alike they are aesthetically. So I made the suggestion that the Ironclad series is kind of a kit bash of parts from the Cat, and more particularly, a lot more, the Kraken. And the Cat, briefly, is just the command unit. So on the closest part of this photograph, you will see that there is basically that setup that allows you to fly the ship that can be detached and everything else, just like the Cat, which I, along with many commentators, I agree that it should really not even exist, or just be a kind of an afterthought. There should at least be another control location at the center of the ship on that command deck that's in the center of the ship, overlooking your storage areas. But the point is the cargo deck. And on the Kraken, though, the Kraken does it right. You have basically a really good vantage point from the Kraken's command location, its bridge, and you have the ability to kind of see some of the design characteristics that I think that they're working on for the Kraken and kind of fine-tuning and modernizing in the Ironclad. And John Crew, when pressed about that by Jared during the video, pointed out that it seems like it would make it easier to work on the Kraken if the Ironclad was being developed and such. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of changeover and crossover. If you're curious to see what developments are happening on the Kraken in a roundabout way, some of the concept art and especially the video walkthrough that was done with CIG's video, which is an interesting side note. I'll put it in the video's description here. So I think that those type of things are a sign of things to come. I believe that after RSI gets wrapped up, or mid-process, that we'll start seeing kind of a Drake push the same way, where they'll take a whole kit of items, which they're already doing, and I believe over the next year or two start sprawling out a whole bunch of equipment. We've already seen that the Kraken exterior was put into simulations and shown, in in-game environments. I still remember CitizenCon, where it was parked outside of Lorville. It teases a spaceport, just the exterior mesh. It's been heavily rumored that it will be a part of Squadron 42, as the Coil crew, the RMC and such will be involved with that. It's just rumors, but at some point in the Squadron series, who knows if it's going to be the first part or whatever. But it makes a lot of sense for them to have this vessel be available. And I think that as more parts get fleshed out and more Ironclads get sold and more interest in these, I think that you're going to see more and more and more talk of Kraken and the rumble of the drum of people who want to release that Kraken. I think especially the vanilla Kraken is the closest comparison. As I pointed out, the Kraken Privateer is a lot more of a departure from what the Ironclad's philosophy is. It's not so the Kraken Vanilla is more of an upsized Ironclad versus the Kraken Privateer. I don't see either version of the Ironclad kind of matching the characteristics of the Kraken Privateer, and that's okay. It's nice to have some really fun different ships that fit different roles. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. I'm waiting for the Ironclad Q&A. I think it's going to be this week, and that's going to be very interesting. But at least now people have the information they need. Also, I want to again thank Star Destroyer from SC Tools. I have a pinned comment with the link to his website. Give it a shot. It is a fantastic resource, and the renderings that are being made are fantastic. I think more tools in the community never hurts. Thank you to my long-term subscribers. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Have a great evening.